rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The growing Islamophobia has now become a concern for all the innocent Muslim community living in Australia and elsewhere. There are also non-Muslims who are equally concerned about the consequences of the growing Islamophobia in our society. Experts claim that the reason for Islamophobia to grow are the recent attacks that take place across the globe. For example, the Nice attack in France or the recent attacks here in Australia or elsewhere are all putting the burden and the pressure on the Muslim community living here in Australia. How do we tackle and respond to this? Is silence a response, or do we have to respond with something more appropriate? If we look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ and the previous prophets, at those times there was Islamophobia as well. So how did they respond to that? We see that one of the responses to the growing innocent or ignorant or even arrogant Islamophobia is the people, there are those who are unaware of the Islamic teachings and are wrongly fooled into believing that it is Islam which is the reason for all the terror attacks that take place across the globe. Secondly, there are people who are anti-Muslims. They are racist into this scenario, and they are the ones who do not care about the facts, and they do not care about what truly Islam would teach. Rather, they are in a mode where they want to oppose a certain minority and a certain group of people. So that's why they are being racist and they are being Islamophobes towards anti-Muslims, Islamophobes and are being anti-Muslims. The third are the group of people who are politically aware of the response and the consequence of being an Islamophobe, and they purposely do it in order to gain points or score or to benefit in the politics that they stand for. In other words, some actually live on being Islamophobes. So how do we respond to all these as Muslims or as non-Muslims who want to tackle Islamophobia? If we look at the seerah of the previous prophets like Musa alayhi salam, at his time when Fir'aun was not only killing, massacring the innocent Bani Israel, but he was actually trying to keep them as slaves for over a long period of time. So when Musa alayhi salam was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to approach Fir'aun, he was asked to go to meet Fir'aun and speak to him and invite him to the religion of truth, towards the truthfulness with kindness. Now this gives us a way to respond. One of the ways is to invite the person. Doesn't matter whether the person is being ignorant or arrogant, an anti-Muslim, an Islamophobe or a racist, they need to be invited and informed about the true teachings of Islam. This is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the previous prophets, including Musa alayhi salam. And while you are meeting such genociders, such people who have committed massacres, Allah commands Musa alayhi salam to speak to him with kindness and invite him towards the religion of Islam. So today in our scenario also, it would perfectly fit in where we as Muslims need to invite the Islamophobes and the anti-Muslims with kindness towards Islam. This is one of the major ways to respond to the people who are against Islam today. The second other category, or how do you respond to the people who are abusive or who are accusers of Islam and the teachings of Muslims? In this scenario, we see that some people came to the Prophet ﷺ and distorted the greeting of Islam. Instead of saying Assalamu alaikum, which would mean to be peace on you, they said Sam alaikum, meaning be death on you. So the Prophet ﷺ, he could have ignored it and kept silent, which is one of the ways, obviously. But was that the best approach to respond to them? No. The Prophet did not keep silent on their abuse. Rather, the Prophet responded to their distorted greeting, which was, they said, death be on you. The Prophet responded to them and said, wa alaykum, and be death on you as well. So the Prophet responded to them in a rhetoric manner to the abuse that they were hurling at the Prophet ﷺ. Now obviously we need to make sure that we do not go down and do not be moral and be ethical in our response, and do not break the frame of the Islamic teachings, that you do not be accuser or abuser in your response or your retaliation. Hope this gives us an insight as to how to respond to these people. And there are enough evidences that when you have given the teachings of Islam, there are people who are Islamophobes at one time have only come forward to become people who have embraced Islam and have lived according to the teachings of Islam from there on in their own lives. So this is one of the ways we respond to them, either by giving them the teachings of Islam or responding them in a rhetoric manner which would open their mind and open their eyes to the truth of Islam and to the truth of not being a victim of Islamophobia. Assalamu alaikum.